Hi everyone, welcome back. For this video, I think a lot of you are going to be a bit excited about because I'm going to show you how to cast in place with faceted sapphires. I have a lot of people asking me how to do this, so making a video about it, I'm pretty sure is going to make a lot of people happy. So I'm going to do multiple stones in just a plain band. So I'm going to do 4 stones running along the top of this band, so you can see how you'd place multiple stones. I'm going to be using a vertical flask just because it seems to help the silver flow around those stones a little bit better. So if you can modify one of your flasks to be vertical, it will really help with your casting process, particularly with the faceted gemstones when you're doing multiple of them. All right, let's get into it. Got my vertical flask, and it's just like your horizontal flask that you would get in your normal Delft clay kit, except I've modified it. I've cut this square out of it. So that square is now my registration mark. And it also means that I will sit it up like this and cast down that hole. But just like your regular horizontal flask, flip it over, lip down, pack from behind. Probably notice in my videos I tend to repeat myself a lot. It's just because I'm not sure who's watching the videos and what stage they're at. So I feel like it's good just to repeat myself just in case somebody hasn't heard the information before. All right, let's compact it with a hammer. Main reason why the lip is down and you're packing and hammering from behind is because you don't want to hammer this lip, because then your two halves won't fit together. So hammer on the outside. That way if you hit the aluminium frame, it doesn't matter. Cut off your excess because you want this to be flush. I like to use a ruler to do it. All right, talcum powder. We're talcum powdering this surface so that the two clay halves don't stick together. It also means your object comes out of the clay easier. You don't have to use talcum powder. You can use just plain cooking flour. I've even heard of someone using cinnamon. I mean, it smells nice, I guess. Got my ring. I'm going to push it into about halfway. Halfway is quite important when you're doing something with faceted gemstones, particularly if you want your faceted gemstones to be central, in the middle of the band. You need to know where that halfway mark is. Looks pretty good. Put on the female, lining up that registration, which in this flask is this square. Get some clay, crumbly and loose, and push it in with your fingers so that it's nice and tight around that object. And now you can get some bigger handfuls of clay and just squish it in there and hammer it. Using your ruler, cut off any excess. Ruler is also great for clearing out your space. I want to open this up, but I don't want to screw it open. I'm just going to pull it apart evenly. And I'm going to get this band out. Of course, it's tricky to get out now that I'm recording. There we go. Out. You can use your tweezers. Let's do our sprue hole and funnel first before we get into placing gemstones. So a little bit different to the horizontal flask is with this vertical flask, we're going to do it like this. And you do it to both sides. You still have to make sure that that funnel and hole are smooth, no loose bits of clay. I like to use the back of my paintbrush to do that. I'm going to get my ring and I'm going to put it back in and crisp up that design again, because I feel like I might have disturbed that clay when I made that funnel and hole. Looks good. Now let's place some gemstones. I'm going to place them in this side just because even though I tried to make the ring in half of the flask and in half of the other, I have managed to do one side shallower than the other. So this is the deeper side. So I've got more room to place stones on this side. So I'm going to place them on the female side. I'm going to set the male aside for now. Alright, I have my gemstones in this little ramekin. I have other gemstones as well, but we'll ignore those. This is where the pawpaw ointment comes in handy. Okay, I'm going to put a little bit of pawpaw ointment on the table of this sapphire. And I'm going to place this sapphire on that vertical wall. Really gently. So it's very fiddly doing faceted gemstones. They're slippery because they've got polished surfaces. And they have a very obvious orientation. So if they're in crooked, it's really obvious that they're in crooked. Where with the rough gemstones, nobody knows which way they were meant to go up because it doesn't have a top or a bottom or a side. But with faceted gemstones, they do. So I'm just trying to make sure that that is straight up and down. I think so. I do want this sapphire to be sitting proud of this half so that it can be poking. If it's poking out of this side, it means it's going to be poking into this side, which means it should be in the middle. Should be. Let's go for the next stone. Make sure your gemstones are clean. You don't want any clay on the back side of your stone. It'll be trapped in there and you'll be able to see it through your gemstone, or it'll stop your silver from being able to grab that gemstone and hold it securely in place. Either way, you don't want it there. Got to be nice and clean. So I've just put a little bit more pawpaw on this guy on the table again, which is the surface I'm sticking to this vertical wall. The surface you want to see of the stone is usually the side you put pawpaw on, and it's usually the side you stick down in the clay. So you might have noticed I'm not really pushing these stones into the clay at all, because there's only a very small margin of casting in placeness security with these stones. If I push it too deep in the clay here, it means the silver can't hold onto the girdle of that stone and the stone will just pop out of the silver version. So I need to be able to see the girdle of my stone inside of this design, which means the silver will hold onto it and hold that gemstone securely in place. If that girdle is outside of the design, it means the silver's not going to wrap around it and it won't be secure, it will fall out. And there's just a tiny, tiny amount of room to get it correct, which is why it's so fiddly. I'm replicating a piece that broke. So I was just checking which way the stones were laid out so that I can replicate it again in this piece. Find it's a quick, easy way to clean the gemstone is just to roll it on the palm of your hand. And that works with the rough sapphires as well. Fine nose tweezers are really important when it comes to working with the faceted gemstones because you need to be accurate. Check again. Stone placement. Talking too much. Okay. Stick it on that vertical wall. Accidentally bumped that one, so let me reposition it. And let's position this one. Lots of concentration. It's good to have about a 1 millimeter gap between the stones so that there's enough room for the silver to flow between the two stones and secure both of them in place. All right, last gemstone. Beautiful little teal sapphire. Pour. Let's stick it in. Alright, let's close up this flask and open it again and see if these stones move. It's quite important to check that before casting, otherwise you'll be quite disappointed if your stones have moved without you realizing it and you cast them in the wrong position. Alright, so open it up. Alright, it has moved a little bit, but that could be because I closed and opened it. Anyway, let's pull it out, clean it off, pour it up again and reposition it. Now I might put a little bit more pour on it to encourage it not to move. Slippery. Okay, let's close and open this and see if those stones move. So on this other side, I can see where that princess cut is touching the sand. Right there, which is why it moved the last time and which is why it moved again this time. So I've just got to make a slight alteration. I'm going to put this ring back in, give it a little bit of a swirl, and give it a little bit of a wiggle back and forth, which will make this clay wall move back a little bit. And hopefully that's all we'll have to do. Now let's reposition this stone. I don't think I need to pull it out and pour it again. I think all I have to do is that, making sure it's straight. Let's close and open. Still moving slightly. Let's do this. Let's make a bit of room for it. Doesn't have to be much. Just pushing that clay wall back a little bit so that the sapphire has room to sit in this side. It's very fiddly. Gotta have patience. It's worth it though. And the more you do it, the easier it'll be. Let's close and open. See if that stone moves. Wonderful. It hasn't moved. Let's do an air vent. I really want that metal to come around this inside, meet here, wrapping around all of those sapphires. I'm going to do 2 air vents just in case a stone is covering up one of the air vents. So I'm going to do 2 channels leading off the ring and poke out and poke out. And I'm making these channels, having my sharp tool very horizontal like that. I'm smooshing the clay into a channel shape rather than straight up and down, which is raising all that clay and it's very messy. So come down on quite a strong horizontal and just press that clay down. It's much, much cleaner. Flip it over, open up these holes. I don't know which is which, so let's just open both of them. Close that up and we'll cast and cross our fingers. Make sure you're wearing safety glasses and you've got a ventilation mask because it's about to get smoky. Got my mini Smith torch with LPG gas and oxygen. I'm using a modified size 6 tip, but if you've got a size 7 tip, then that'll be perfect. When I say modified, I just mean I've drilled that hole out a little bit. Why aren't I using my size 7 tip? Funny you ask. I destroyed it. You want a nice hot flame. So very fast, angry flame. Dominant hand is always on the crucible handle so that you are in control of the metal at all times. A lot of people ask me, how do I know how much metal to melt? I don't. I just guess. I guess how much I need and then I double it. It's always good to have about 10 grams more. That extra weight and force will help push all that silver into your flask and complete your casting. I need to re-season my crucible. Need to put more borax in there. Starting to get a bit sticky. That's nice and molten. Bring it on over to your flask. Rest the crucible against the side of your flask. Focus that heat on the lip of the crucible because you're just about to pour over it and you want to make sure it's really hot. And you also want to simultaneously be keeping that metal really hot. I've got way more metal than I actually need, so I'm probably going to do a little bit of a spillage, but we'll see what happens. When you're feeling nice and confident, throw it down the hole real quick. 1, 2, 3, down the hatch. And I spilled just as I said I would. Okay. This would be a good time to put your mask on. I may not be able to touch this flask straight away because I did spill metal on it. It's not too bad. Alright. Just always be careful. Do not put your freshly cast casting in water if it's got gemstones. Those gemstones will not appreciate being dumped in cold water. Alright. So those stones were a lot more covered than I anticipated, but that's okay because I can get in there with my graving tool and expose more of them if I wanted to. For those of you who've done my workshops, you'll know that this is my mask I wear during the classes. It's also the mask I wear at home. It's fantastic, and it's a little bit too scary to wear out in Corona times. I have another one that's just like this, just black. These are from RZ Masks. I think it's an American company. They're really good, carbon filter. So if you're looking for a great comfortable mask to wear while you're working in your studios at home, I really suggest RZ Masks. And this is not sponsored, by the way. This is like my genuine appreciation for this good quality mask. But I can take it off now because it's not smoke anymore. And these are my safety glasses because I'm a little bit vain. Okay, so that's the ring we just cast. And let's get that giant sprue off with the bolt cutters. Something that I really suggest you purchase if you're going to do a lot of casting. This articulated arm is essential. Just like that. So I can reuse this button to make something else. And there is a little bit of extra metal, but that's super easy to just saw pierce off and then file back flush. It's so much easier cutting it off with the bolt cutters and just having this little nub to deal with than it is trying to saw pierce through this with this on the end of it. It's very hard to hold on your bench. I'm gonna go clean this up and I'll be back. I'm back with the ring all cleaned up. So again, not sure if you can see it because the camera's not that great, but I'll do like a little video or photograph so that you can see all those details. So I went in with my engraving tool and I removed some of that silver that was over the top of the stone so that you can see more of the stones, but making sure not to remove too much material because I want to make sure these stones are secure and not going to fall out. Yeah, well, thank you for watching, and hopefully this is really informative and you'll give casting in place faceted stones a go. Let me know how you go at home, and if you have any questions, hit me up, or if you'd like some more videos, let me know. All right, bye.